What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If. If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my second channel, so if you want some more what ifs, go check out my other channels. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Kami my head, Naruto moaned out as he slowly grasped his head. It throbbed in pain from the exhaustion from his fight against Sasuke. If his memory served him right, to the odd bell ringing loudly in his ears, the blonde moved, feeling branches snapping and the rough rocks underneath him as he tried to get back up. Much of his energy was gone, though it'll return once fully rested, but Naruto willed himself to stand. Several moments passed as he steadied himself up by using a tree for leverage. Where the hell am I? He gazed at his surroundings and saw a small dirt path alongside a broken creek. The blonde teenager hobbled close to the water so he could check if it was possibly usable. With his roughed out voice, he realized he was quite thirsty and needed to properly check for any injuries that he couldn't see. Sigh, well, this feels slightly good, he muttered to himself as he splashed himself in the face and used a clean part of his sleeve to wipe off the grime. Once that was done, he checked the water and realized, after checking his surroundings a bit more, that he was in some sort of a deep crevice. Naruto knew he wasn't going to do any reflective checking at this time until he could find a brighter area to do so. Before going any further, Naruto checked his weapons pack to see how much he had left in his arsenal and inventory. Okay, so I've got all of my storage scrolls intact, so that's good. A handful of smoke bombs, ration, and food pills, my notebook, Gamachan, and my ID with me, but no money. So I shouldn't have emptied my wallet before leaving. Then there's my gutsy ninja book and Pervy Sage's copies of Ika Ika. With the last one, he groaned out as he realized Jiraiya must have slipped in that damned book set without him looking before he went off and died fighting Nagato. I could maybe sell it to someone for some coin. I'm about several dozen kunai Senbon and shuriken, each a good dozen or so of exploding tags, several dozen feet of wire, and my collection of Kiri weapons from killing the previous users. I need more wire and basic kunai and shuriken along with the wire, but that can wait for now. I'm pretty skilled at swordsmanship, but I could use the practice with the new blades and my scrolls. He listened before looking around once more as a dark vibe radiated in the air. I'll need to use those sparingly, but for now, after popping in a food pill to refill some of his reserves, Naruto pulled out one particular scroll that was labeled weapons and unfurled it all the way to reveal 5 used seals. Rolling up the scroll to the first seal to reveal his first weapon in his little collection, he bit his thumb to draw out some blood. He smeared it slightly with a resulting poof to reveal his first earned sword, the Kubikura Bocho. Naruto smiled a little when seeing this as he lifted it up slightly so he could put away the scroll before hoisting it up onto his shoulder. 3 years ago, Team 7 were heading back to Konoha the morning when Tazuna had finished building his bridge. Naruto got up extra early so he could head over to Zabuza and Haku's grave markers. He did this to pay his respects, especially since he didn't know when he'd return to do this again. Before leaving, Naruto heard a faint whisper in his ear, literally sending a chill down his spine. It was very familiar to him as he heard it once again, as it seemed a little louder. He didn't know if it was real or not, but he definitely heard Zabuza, the demon of Kirigakure, telling the blonde to take his sword. Not wanting to be rude, Naruto took it with little hesitation and a bit of effort with how bloody heavy it was before sealing it in a spare storage scroll. After that day, the blonde did what he could to practice with the Kiri sword, as it was great weight training, but kept it a secret from the rest of his team and the rest of his village. He would have yelled out in glee that he got such a badass legendary weapon, but that would have disrespected their memories. If he did, though, why he never used it on previous missions and in the Chunin exams, he'd never possibly felt that he wasn't ready to use it quite yet. Yeah, that was most definitely it. I wonder how they're doing now in the Pure Lands above. Naruto spoke out as he looked up at the thick cloudy sky with a sigh. Well, time to get moving, he said. He stood up and cracked his back at a steady pace as he was in no rush. Naruto went about to find higher ground so he could try and navigate his way back home, though as minutes passed he felt creeped out by seeing varying grave markers lying about. Made him wonder if he woke up in a rundown cemetery while questioning himself on how he got there. To begin with, all thoughts halted as the blonde saw a cloaked man coming into view. Being a bit precarious, Naruto slowly went up to the man and called out to him, excuse me. Hearing the boy's voice, the cloaked man wiped his head around to reveal his stony face. The man loudly hissed as he lunged towards the blonde teenager. Alarmed at this point, Naruto dodged as the man tried to get closer, but a well-placed kick knocked the man away. The blonde's instincts yelled out to strike the man down, and he did. Swinging the decapitating knife, he knocked the man down with a deep gash into his arm. "The hell are you?" the shinobi asked as the man stood back up and tried to get in close, but failed as Naruto swung once more and this time sliced the man's head right off as the body tumbled onto the ground. The teenager checked the man to see a peculiar sight. What was stony skin was quite right, as it appeared to be scales covering his entire being. How did this happen? Footsteps were soon heard, causing Naruto to look towards the side, seeing several other stone men coming his way. Seeing their companion dead on the ground, they hissed at the newcomer and pulled out some weapons. Knives, daggers and crossbows. The blade wielders ran towards Naruto while the crossbow wielders took aim. Not wanting to be harmed, Naruto took a swing at the blade wielders to take care of them before picking up a pair of daggers and threw them at the crossbow wielders. With them now dead, Naruto checked on their corpses to see if there was anything of value for him. Unfortunately, all that he got out of this little moment were some knives, daggers, a crossbow and a handful of arrows. Not wanting to waste some valuable resources, he took them with him before moving onward elsewhere. What a day, what a day, a man muttered as he walked through the foliage. He appeared to be in his late 30s with dark and short hair to complement his Dornish features from the olive skin tone, with a thin beard that fitted along his jawline and around his mouth. He was currently wearing a leather tunic with matching boots and a dark yellow material around his arms and legs. The only thing he properly had on him was his trusty spear, at the ready for anything unusual. Everything was all fine and dandy until that freaky storm came out of nowhere. He and his shipmates were passing by this place on their way to Marine, as it was the quickest way by boat. It was mostly clear skies despite the smoky sky Valeria offered to anyone coming close to its borders, when all of a sudden a freak storm came out of nowhere. Everyone had heard stories about the place with its historic downfall, with volcanoes destroying the surrounding areas and reshaping it at least 400 years ago, but they never expected this to happen at all. When the man traveled around Essos for 5 years as a teenager, he avoided this place out of worry. He was brave enough, but was precarious due to what rumors he kept hearing about Valeria since its downfall, of monsters and demons rising from the ashes of the once great city of the world. Hell, he wasn't going to step foot onto this place even after the storm settled. But an odd occurrence appeared, like the gods took a star and threw it down from the heavens. Almost everyone saw what happened and thought they would have heard a loud bang once it fell, but they heard nothing. Nothing at all, only seeing a quick flash of light coming from the stormy clouds to hit straight into the middle of the island. The Dornishman's curiosity soon took hold of him, and he wanted to check things out for himself. His paramour pleaded for him to not go, but he told her that he'd be fine and come back to her. So after a soul-searing kiss, the man from Dorne took a small boat and rowed himself to shore while his crew went to fix up the ship from the storm. Earlier along the way towards his little goal, he came across several stone men and dealt with them accordingly. It saddened him slightly on doing this, but these men were infected with grayscale, and it would have been better to kill them off than for them and others to suffer this fate. Though it came to one point he possibly found where the star landed, but it appeared to have moved, picking up the trail. The viper was going to catch his prey sooner or later. Back with Naruto, where the hell do these guys keep coming from? Naruto kept swinging his Kiri sword several times as he took care of the little horde of stone men. He was finally able to get to higher ground, which soon overlooked the ocean on one side and a large mountain range on the other. The blonde admitted it was quite the sight to behold as he gazed at the odd ruins that seemed to blend with the mountains. Of course, it seemed to piss him off that he possibly ended up on a deserted island of all places while passing through additional ruins. He kept coming across these men and kept taking care of them. There seemed to be no end to them. At least he kept getting more and more stuff because of it, and with the daggers and knives he kept getting, he could either melt them down to resupply himself on ammo or sell them. Once finding civilization getting tired from using his sword, he sealed it back up into the scroll before pulling out a pair of daggers he pilfered earlier. They weren't all that great appearance-wise, but his eyes could tell they could work quite well until they needed to be sharpened later on. Moving forward, Naruto caught sight of some stone men guarding something down a certain pathway. He tried to get their attention, but to no avail, as they seemed ignorant of him. "Come on, get over here, assholes," Naruto muttered as he tried yet failed to get those men to move from their spots. "Okay, if you want to be bitches and guard things, I can definitely deal with you." Pouring chakra into his feet, he walked up the stone wall to get high enough for a dive bomb attack. Positioning himself correctly, he stopped the chakra flow to fall from up high. With daggers in hand, in swift motions he slammed the blades into the men's skulls before kicking the third man away. Pulling the blades back out, Naruto dashed towards the final stone man and punched the man in the gut before kicking him off of the cliff and into the waters below. Now let's see what you guys were guarding. Stepping over the dead bodies, Naruto soon reached what the men were guarding. A rotting-looking chest. Stabbing a dagger into the lock, it easily broke to let the shinobi be able to open the lid to reveal, "Holy shit, that is a lot of gold," he said in surprise. The blonde had never seen so much gold in his life as he had the widest grin on his face. "Man, oh man, I can't wait to cash this in. Oh, I can only imagine how much Ichiraka ramen this'll get me, and I can finally move out of that stupid-ass apartment." Pulling out a storage scroll, he opened it up and carefully drew a seal that'll store the rotten chest, though he needed to summon a clone to help lift it up so it can be carefully placed on the drying seal. But while he waited, he checked the coins and saw that he didn't recognize the markings. Must be some foreign currency or something really old, he muttered as he inspected some of them. Though what's up with dragons being the main design? Wanting to deal with this later, he and his clone placed the chest onto the seal marker and got things taken care of before moving forward. After going around some corners, Naruto came across a ruined archway that seemed mostly intact, though once he gazed through the opening he saw a peculiar sight. Several dozen feet away from him, the blonde went down the stone steps with curiosity filling his very being. He wanted to see what the oddity was. Once coming close enough, he saw it seemed to be an odd metallic statue, with ordinary cloth around its waist, appearing to be kneeling a good dozen feet from a large pair of doors. Naruto guessed that it was 9 or so feet tall if it would have stood upward. Near it laid a giant halberd with an extremely long pole that could have been the same length as the statue if it stood, but an odd feature of the statue was the sword sticking out of its chest. His curiosity soon got the best of him as his hand was being pulled by an unseen force, making the blonde reach out towards the weapon. Naruto didn't know why he was doing it, even as Kurama's voice soon yelled out into his head, "Don't touch it," but it was too late. As the moment his fingers grazed against the pommel, the weapon turned to ash. "The hell?" he asked as he soon felt the air filling up with malice. His eyes soon landed upon the statue as it started to rumble, and metallic creaking soon followed. Without warning, its right arm shot towards the halberd and grasped it before the other arm shot out, causing Naruto to fly into the air before skidding on the wet ground. "Damn it, that hurt," Naruto growled out as he looked towards the statue. It quickly rose up before pulling its weapon out of the ground as it slowly made its way towards him. Feeling quite worried now, he pulled out his weapon scroll and unsealed his explosive sword. "Shibuki out for this one." Seeing its opponent now armed, it stalked forward until it swung its weapon to cover a vast range. Having no time to dodge, Naruto brought his sword up to block the swing, but it was too strong of a blow. He tried to hold his ground, but the following swing sent him flying to the side. Not wanting to fall off the edge of the cliff, Naruto slammed the blade into the ground to keep himself on the battlefield. "Damn, that thing is strong. I need to bloody move away from that guy." Getting back onto the ground, Naruto quickly pulled the sword out and started to run with the statue following. Not far behind, it kept slamming the halberd down too fast for comfort, making the blonde fall onto the ground several times. When it tried to get in close, the genin rolled out of the way to avoid being chopped by its blade. Feeling annoyed by this now, Naruto ran in close and started slashing the statue several times, but it didn't do much. When the Kubikura Bocho blade bounced off of its armor, it did slash through the opening around its waist, the explosion causing the monster to stumble back from him, showing that it's possibly its weak spot. Naruto attempted one more strike, but he was backhanded away from the armored golem. "Gah!" Naruto yelled out as he soon impacted the nearby wall, falling to the ground. He saw the statue coming closer with its axe held high. "Well, crap, seems you'll be finishing off what Sasuke couldn't." Just when the halberd was about to come down, someone yelled out and gained the statue's attention as a spear sailed through the air and pierced the golem's neck. Turning towards the source, both Naruto and the statue saw a man in a leather tunic with a shield in one hand and another spear in the other. The man hotly glared at the giant before he ran towards it, leaped and struck the being in the opening in its arm. The golem bellowed out as its available arm pulled out the spear in its injured arm and tossed it to the side before trying to pull out the one in its neck. Coming up to Naruto's side, the Dornish man went to see if the blonde was alright. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I am, and thanks for the little save." "What the hell are you doing here, boy?" he questioned as he gazed to the side as the golem tried to pull out the second spear the Dorn man acquired earlier with the shield from one of the stone men. "This place is not meant for the likes of you." "Well, sorry if I happened to show up here without knowing how I got here in the first place." "Excuse me." Naruto was about to respond when his eyes widened and pushed the man out of the way as the halberd came crashing down onto the ground. The two rolled in their respective directions before coming to a stop as the Dornish man got back up to defend himself and hopefully save the boy. The Armored golem was already close by. Damn, and here I thought the mountain was tall, but you take the fucking cake, the man grunted as the moving statue literally towered over him. He was ready to take the strike with his shield firmly held when explosions impacted the golem, making it turn around towards the source. Get away from him, asshole, Naruto yelled out as he formed a hand sign and summoned several clones beside him. By the seven, the spear wielder muttered in surprise as he saw the copies appear from smoke before leaping at the golem, striking it with daggers on hand. As each copy tried to pierce its armor, to no avail. It swung several times, causing them to seemingly die as they literally went up in smoke. Hey ugly, the real Naruto called out as he held up a large executioner's sword with both hands with a cheeky smirk. Think you can catch me? Taking the bait, the golem jumped into the air as it tried to crush the blonde, but he dashed out of the way. As he pumped his legs with a lot of chakra, it kept on swinging, but Naruto dodged every time. Oh, calm down, ugly, Naruto taunted before dodging yet another strike. Oh, look at you and your big swings, yet you can't hit me at all. The Dorn man could only watch and slide as the boy was quickly moving away from the larger being as he performed odd acrobatic moves. Each time the boy even got on top of the golem's weapon before delivering a chakra-empowered kick across the head with it. Detracted slightly, the blonde slashed at what openings it had held. The man could only wonder how the boy was holding such a big bladed weapon that even he would have a hard time wielding. Though not wanting to be left out, the Dornishman looked towards the side to see his spear running towards it. He grasped it and ran at the golem as he delivered quick strikes against the openings. Both men worked in tandem to try and take down the golem until it soon bellowed out an unholy sound. The two humans got away and gained a surprised, yet worried look on their faces as something seemed to burst out of the golem's left arm and helmet, sending both armor pieces away as gallons upon gallons of black substance leaked out and formed something from possibly one's nightmares. Part of the substance attached itself against a nearby tree and pulled it out of its roots before it formed into a claw-like appendage to replace its lost limb. By the time it finished leaking, the two saw what appeared to be an inky snake with glowing blood-red eyes. Oh hell no, the shinobi yelled out, not another giant snake. Why do I have to deal with those almost every damn time? Not wanting to comment on that, the Dorn man quickly moved out of the way from the monster's gaping jaw as it tried to take a bite out of him. With the unsuccessful attack, the ink monster swung its mighty tail around, causing Naruto to block it with his sword before having to jump out of the way from the tree claw coming his way. With no time for evasive maneuvers, Naruto swung his blade hard, impacting against the hardened trunk and branches to at least hold it off. The spear/shield wielder went towards the monster's side and started to slash and bash with his weapons. Little could be done in terms of damage now, as the inky monster seemed to regenerate at a fast pace. Before anything else could be done, the monster bellowed out a roar once again in pain as it was shot across the battlefield courtesy of Naruto's Rasengan. At least that gives us a little bit of space, Naruto muttered before looking at the man fighting alongside him. So are you doing alright on your part? Grunt. I think so, the man said as he tried to think of a way to defeat this monstrosity before looking back at the blonde boy. Though I've got to ask, how in the seven hells are you doing all of that? Looking at him oddly while hearing the monster roar in the background, Naruto soon gave him a cheeky smirk, all the while as the blonde pulled out several knives with exploding tags attached with chakra. That's what. Seeing the monster run closer, Naruto poured chakra into the tags to ignite them before throwing the knives at the beast. Once impacting its face, they detonated, causing it to bellow out a painful cry. With it distracted a little more, the blonde summoned more clones before they leaped at the beast. I don't know about this chakra you're speaking about, boy, but can you order your copies to get that halberd out? If it's grasp, I might have an idea on how to finish it off, and I'd like to skewer the beast with its own weapon, the man said, getting Naruto to nod in response before yelling out the order. Nodding in tandem, the clones continued their assault with chakra-empowered physical blows to knock the beast around. Naruto ran with his sword coated with chakra while the Dornish man soon followed. The blonde slid in close and upwardly slashed at the small opening in the arm to get the armored arm free from the beast. Dropping his wooden spear and shield, the Dornish man rushed towards the falling weapon and grasped it in both hands before swinging with all his might to injure the beast several times. It roared in pain as the cuts went deep on its face before Naruto leaped into the air and swung his sword down in a decapitating motion. The attack landed its mark, but the blade was stuck at the monster's neck. Keep hitting him, Naruto ordered the now halberd wielder as he nodded with a grunt. The man kept slashing at the beast and saw the attacks were now working. With this going on, Naruto held out his hand and formed a Rasengan before Slamming it down onto the blade. Upon impact, the blade started to move deeper and deeper as cracks appeared on the blade. Both humans exerted in this last moment as Naruto pushed his Rasengan deeper while the halberd went up through the mouth to finally kill the beast with its final roar. The monster's form seemed to fall apart before the inky substance burned away. Naruto landed on the ground with his heavily cracked sword next to the tired man, as he dropped the metallic halberd with a resulting clang. The two men saw the rest of the armor fall onto the ground with all of its pieces still intact. Man, that was one hell of a fight. Naruto chuckled in mild bemusement as the man responded in a similar fashion. That it was a boy, that it was, he said as he felt somewhat relieved after defeating the monstrosity. Throughout the fight, the man kept replacing the beast with the man who killed his sister and her children. Not a good replacement, but with how big the monster was, it was hard not to visualize it being someone else. Though I didn't expect to actually encounter an old Valyrian demon today. What now? You don't know what that boy was from the old tales that depict what possibly remains here? No, I'm pretty lost on what you're talking about. The man could only sigh a little on this. The boy could either be playing around, be very ignorant, or be telling the truth, but the latter could be very unlikely. How about we make some introductions, boy? After all, we did fight that ferocious beast together. Yeah, that would make sense, the blonde muttered before holding out his hand towards the man named Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of Konohagakure. The man only blinked on the little title there. Since he has no idea where this Konohagakure is at all, he'll probably get some information from the blonde when the time's right, but for now he doesn't want to be rude at the present moment as he grasped the boy's hand and shook it. And my name is Oberyn Martell of House Martell and Prince of Dorne. Really, you're a prince? The blonde shinobi thought as he added the man to the list of royals he met in the past. There was Koyuki and Granny technically counts. Why, of course, Oberyn said with a little smile. You probably have heard of the Great Red Viper of Dorne. Nope. What? Sorry, but I've never heard of you before at all. Obi-san, it's Oberyn. Yeah, whatever. Naruto waved him off, getting a small twitch to the man's eye. So you said that thing was a demon? These two were still standing in the battlefield in which they faced off against that odd monstrosity that inhabited the giant suit of armor which is currently spread out in most places in the area. There were still the helmet and left arm pieces scattered about while its halberd lay at their feet. Some slight exhaustion was shown on the two humans, but a little break from all of the action could help them out. Well, I never believed them to exist before, but this ended up confirming things, Oberyn said as his foot kicked part of the armor. Little. So I don't know about you, Obi-san, but do you want something from out of this, for your troubles? I don't know what you mean, Naruto. Answering this, Naruto hoisted up the large metallic halberd with some difficulty as he looked it over. Well, this is a pretty good weapon, and as much as I'd like to keep it, not only is it not my style, it's way too big for me to use, and not only that, but I have plenty of weapons on hand. You say that since you have that fucking big sword right there. Oberyn eyed the Kubikura Bocho with the varying cracks on it. First off, I train my ass off to carry and wield that beauty. Secondly, I just need to get some blood on her to fix her, said the blonde teenager as he planted the tip of the blade into the dirt and shocked the Prince of Dorne as he sliced his hand across the blade and smeared the blood onto the flat of it, and much to Oberyn's shock, the blood actually fixed it to where it was almost brand new. Was it blood magic or an enchanted sword, or both? Nodding in satisfaction before he put his attention back at the halberd, Naruto nodded his head at it. So do you want it? It's as close to a spear as you can get so far. Let me recover from the shock of you fixing a damn sword with blood right quick, would you? The still shocked man sighed out as he shook his head. All right, I'm good, he said before clearing his throat. Now, as much as I would like it, I am going to point out that I struggled in carrying, let alone using the damn thing when I first held it. Yeah, I saw that. Maybe we could find someone to melt this down and you could have it to your liking. Hearing this suggestion, the Red Viper took a glance at the large weapon as something about it seemed familiar to him, but he didn't know what it was. In fact, the same went with the large set of armor. Giving the kid a nod, he accepted it, but there was one problem. How the hell am I going to carry that in the first place? I mean, it's fucking heavy. For seven's sake, realizing this, Oberyn was pretty much right, so Naruto pulled out his weapon scroll and unfurled it a little longer before pulling out a little ink set. This got a raised look from the Dornish man as he saw Naruto write an interesting pattern onto the paper. Grabbing the halberd, the blonde carefully placed the tip onto the paper. Reaching down, Naruto channeled chakra into his fingertips onto the seal, causing the halberd to disappear in a plume of smoke. What the fuck? Yelled out the Dornish prince, jumping back in shock once more as he witnessed the spectacle. Where'd it go? Naruto gained a raised look and spoke back. I sealed it into a seal, Obi-san. I thought people knew shinobi use chakra, he said curiously. There you go again with this chakra. What is it, and is that what you are, a shinobi? Yeah, I mean, who doesn't know what shinobi are? We're in the elemental nations, for crying out loud. This is the first time I'm hearing this, boy, and elemental nations were currently in Old Valyria. which is a part of Essos, and next to that is Westeros, said the Viper. In all my life I've traveled across this world, and yet I've never come across a place called the Elemental Nations, kid, and sorry to say, but what you just did isn't normal by any means. Naruto looked at Oberyn to try and see if he was telling the truth, only to find no lies in what he was saying. This only left the teenager more and more questions as he scratched his head and thought, if he's not in the Elemental Nations, then where the hell is he? Look, we can ask 20 or so questions later, Naruto. I'd like it if we could start moving before any of those stone men or any other monstrosities start showing up, the prince said as he soon eyed the doors on the other side of the former battlefield. How about we try and talk a little in a possible safer area so we can talk a little more, if that's alright with you? Sighing a little, Naruto compiled as he and Oberyn headed towards the door, though the blonde stopped for a moment and summoned a clone. The Red Viper looked in confusion before seeing the boy hand the copy a scroll and ink set before making its way towards the suit of armor. The man figured the boy wanted to take the armor set with him to possibly sell or melt it down into something else. After all, it did look pretty nice in detail. If he guessed correctly, the two placed their hands onto doors and pushed with all their might to get it open. It took quite the effort given how old the doors were and them being unmaintained since Valeria's fall. Soon loud creaking was heard as the doors gave way and opened up for the two travelers. By the time they were wide enough for Naruto and Oberyn to walk on through, the clone returned with the armor sealed up, along with handing Oberyn his spears and shield for the coming travels. Before dispelling, walking through the small path, the two saw grave markers littering the area. To keep up with the foreboding feeling in the air, they were glad neither of them ran into any trouble, but kept their guards up for what may lie ahead. As the path eventually led up a steep hill, the two soon saw a shrine of sorts and silently agreed to check it out if it could be possibly safe. When inspecting the outward appearance of the shrine, Oberyn couldn't help but marvel a little on how intact it appeared to be despite the slightly ruined feel of the building. It was a great and wonderful example of Valyrian architecture. Inspecting the door, the two stabbed their weapons into the ground before pushing the entrance inwards to enter the possible safe area for them to rest and talk. Though what they didn't expect once stepping inside was seeing several large stone thrones easily shown with the light coming from the shrine's entrance. The two were quite curious about the find as they walked down the stairs to see a fire pit that hasn't been used in centuries. Not minding that, now they got closer to the thrones to inspect them by walking up a different set of stairs and saw sigils on each of their backs. The one on the left had a crab, the right had a seahorse, and in the middle had a three-headed dragon. By the seven, the thrones of the ancestral houses of Celtigar, Valerian, and Targaryen. The Red Viper said in slight awe as he inspected the room a little more. As thoughts filled his mind, this could have been a council chamber for the soon-to-be exiled houses of Valyria before the doom, and what's so important about them anyways? Turning towards the blonde, he saw the teenager having a little notepad and writing tool out as he drew a little. And you keep talking about Valyria several times now, but never tell me what it was to begin with, Naruto stated as he looked to the prince before returning to his scribbling. I guess you're right, Naruto. As he came closer to the blonde, he saw him draw each of the house sigils with good details. Tapping him on the shoulder, Oberyn ushered the shinobi to follow. I'll start talking while we inspect this place, though I'd recommend we stick together just in case of anything. Naruto nodded as he placed his pencil and notepad into his pouch before following the older man. Oberyn soon started to regale the tale that was once known as Valyria while walking through one corridor with two freshly made torchlights, a grand empire that practically ruled Essos centuries ago, and in the center of it all was Valyria itself. The blonde Uzumaki gained a sense of awe and wonder while hearing the tale as the two inspected the shrine for anything of value. The two eventually found what appeared to be a small library. Given the few tables placed and the many books littered around the room, they inspected the ones on the floor to see that they were completely ruined by the many rats that possibly nibbled on them over the years. Deciding to explore a little on their own, the two separated to check out the different times. Going in one section, Naruto didn't know where to start looking until his eye caught something of interest roughly in the center of the room's section, laid and opened dusty old book. He was curious as to why it was placed there with several other books placed on shelves around the room, yet this one was all by itself. The Uzumaki figured it could have been quite significant, and so upon closer inspection, Naruto looked at its current page and tried to read it. Valari, no, that doesn't sound right, Naruto muttered as he tried to pronounce the name on the cover. He didn't know why he could somewhat read this since it wasn't written in kanji, hiragana, and katakana. yet the blonde could somewhat read it. Hell, Naruto even wondered now on how he understood Oberyn in the first place, if there was a language barrier or not, taking a bit of time to pronounce the word, but he thinks he got it. Valyria. Okay, I think I got the enunciation right, so that's how Valyria is spelled out. Carefully dusting off the page of dust and web, Naruto gazed at its written passage, in which he slowly read to himself, "This is the tale of the ruined country of Valyria. The smoke and sea have taken the toll of the once great capital of the empire. What was once a city of wonderment is now just a mere shadow of its former glory. Towers that could have touched the very skies above, where dragons have roamed free and lived in peace with humanity. Valyrians were the best at everything: agriculture, structures, crafting, etc. And for 5,000 years it was the center of civilization itself, and things seemed to be at peace until it happened. We held each other close and turned our backs upon the end, the hills that split asunder, and the black that ate the skies. The flames that shot so high and hot that even dragons burned would never be the final sights that fell upon their eyes. A fly upon a wall, the waves, the sea wind whipped and churned a city for 1,000 years, and all men that learned the doom consumed it all alike, and neither of them turned. The ruins of Valyria are all that remains, as the doom rules it with demons and flames, and the heirlooms of the once great empire. I hope that it'll save the world one day from the forever winter, if it ever comes." Naruto was so drawn into reading it with a sense of worry that came from the written words that he jumped in fright when a hand placed itself on his shoulder. "Whoa there, sorry if I startled you," Oberyn said, holding his hands up in a peaceful manner. "What the hell, Obi-san, you should have warned me before doing that," the blonde stated as he tried to calm his beating heart. "Chuckle, true, but where would be the fun in that?" Looking at the open book, the Dornish prince saw the passage and shivered a little in remembrance of hearing the poem for the first time, but the additions to it seemed of mild interest to the prince. "So did you find anything good?" "Somewhat, but I kept checking several of them along the way, and the majority is written in High Valyrian and some other dialect I'm not familiar with," came the man's honest answer as he scratched his beard. "With High Valyrian it'll take time to decipher and translate. As for the other ones, I'd rather sell to any collectors over in Westeros, Bravos, Pentos, or the Citadel. Maybe I can seal those books up for you so it'll be easier to transport to, well, wherever you're heading off to after we leave this place. Are you sure? Won't you just steal them from me once we part ways, and not tell me the secret in getting the books out of one of your scrolls?" Knowing what he's talking about, Naruto frantically waved him off and tried to defend himself. "Hey, I wouldn't do that at all. I literally have no clue where I'm at, and I might end up lost in the process if I don't have a proper guide." "True, but what would you do to assure me that you won't be taking the books along with that one halberd that you'd let me keep?" Being a bit worried now, Naruto searched for his person to find something great of value to lend to Oberyn for the time being. Soon a thought came to mind, causing Naruto to unzip his slightly ruined orange/black jumpsuit with the hole over his heart. Martel raised a look on what Naruto was doing as he saw the odd metallic mesh shirt underneath before his eyes landed on the piece of jewelry around the blonde's neck. Taking off the necklace, he presented it to the Red Viper. "You could hold on to this if you want, either that or my old forehead protector." "And what is it exactly?" he questioned as he took the string and held the green gem with two metallic beads up at eye level to inspect it. He admits that it does look good, and saw the nice quality of it. "It's Granny's necklace. She told me that she got it from her grandfather, the first Hokage, and it had a lot of significance and history behind it. All I know is that she gave it to her younger brother and her lover at different points in time, but both of them died because of war." Oberyn could hear the honesty in those words and felt a bit of sorrow towards the end. Whoever this woman that Naruto is referring to as Granny must have entrusted Naruto quite a lot to give him this piece of a family heirloom, even with the bit of Hokage referred to as some sort of title perhaps. "I see anything else about it yet. If you wanted to properly sell it, which I wouldn't since I really like that necklace, it'll be worth about 3 gold mines," Naruto stated, getting a slight wide-eyed look from the Dornish prince. "Bullshit," the older man immediately claimed. "Hey, I'm not making that up," the Uzumaki complained, since he was telling the truth. "I had the same response back then when I heard that, even when several others told me that bit of information, so I went to a jeweler with none of those people to bring the info up, and sure enough the one man said it was legit and tried to take it off my hands without me knowing." "Okay, seems Naruto's telling the truth," the Martel thought before inspecting the necklace a little more, though I don't know if the price would change from where he came from, since no one would really know the real history behind this to up the price. Hell, I don't even know who this first Hokage is with his exploits, so as for anyone else it'll be just a sentimental piece until I learned more from the boy, he thought to himself as he cleared his throat, and the forehead protector he asked, gaining a small smile. Naruto explained a little. It originally belonged to Iruka-sensei, my teacher. Throughout my years learning under him, he did what he could to help me out since I failed graduation several times, but he never gave up on me even after I did this one stupid thing because of it. Well, long story short, he gave me his and passed me so I can continue on with my dream. I held on to it even after I got my black one. Acknowledging the significance of both items, Oberyn handed back the necklace before taking Naruto's forehead protector since it held more weight of value than the necklace. Certain objects can be worth more even if they are just simple trinkets. After all, he and his brother Doran kept things their departed sister had on her at all times so they could be closer to her even in death. Once pocketing the piece of protection, they raided the small library for the majority of its contents. It helped that Naruto's shadow clones were able to gather quite a lot and carefully piled things up for the original to get things ready. By the time they were ready to exit the room, the small library was pretty much barren of literally everything except for the furniture, though one thing was left out, and Naruto insisted on carrying it until they found some more stuff to seal up into one of his scrolls, the map of Valyria. So, because of the cataclysm, which was called the Doom Islands, currently make up the territorial remains of old Valyria. Naruto questioned as Oberyn pointed things out on the map in comparison to the current one. The Dornish prince nodded as the two went down one particular corridor which branched off from the main chamber. Oberyn was giving a little lesson to the young shinobi like a maester that he could have been but dropped out when he was bored in his younger years. It is quite interesting to see the boy be a bit interested in the current subject after he showed Oberyn the map of the elemental nations. Martel was fascinated in inspecting the map but would do more in detail once in a better light than just torchlight. Even though Oberyn couldn't read the written language on the map, it seemed quite genuine, but had a bit of trouble being convinced of Naruto coming from one of the locations shown. He had a sinking suspicion that Naruto didn't belong in this world, but probably from another. Possibly he's the one I saw coming down from the heavens earlier. The Red Viper thought as he eyed the blonde teenager. The gods must have taken him from wherever he came from and tossed him here. I'll ask him more on this later since I don't want to believe things on that just yet. Eventually the two soon came across a room that Naruto distinctly realized was some sort of blacksmith shop. Oberyn gazed at the boy and saw a look of recognition in his gaze, making him realize that Naruto has knowledge in what this was. You seem quite interested in this place now, aren't you? Naruto chuckles. Pretty much. Uzumaki's reply as he walked over to the smith station. When I was younger I had a certain amount of stipend to spend on each month by the old man since I lived on my own as an orphan, but I wanted more to purchase certain things, so I went out to find a job. I soon came across a weapons shop an eventual friend turned lover of mine worked at because of her family. He started before Naruto shook his head a little as he picked up the hammer before inspecting it, seeing it was still in great condition. After all these years, I don't remember how I got the position, but I started to learn so much from them as I helped make the various weapons by becoming quite the experienced apprentice alongside my friend 1010 chuckles. I'd imagine, and I'd like to see you back that claim. So do you have a smithing set inside one of those scrolls of yours? No, I don't, Obi-san. There was no point in carrying a set since I had access to my friend's shop, so all I'd have to do was to pay for the materials, and I'd have to make the rest on my own. Kinda glad that I did learn, or else all of this stuff would look confusing to me when it came down to their each and every purpose, and if I hadn't learned the history of some of the more famous weapons from my home, I would think I would have to repair my executioner blade using regular metal. This made the prince quite curious and wondered what the boy meant. Weren't you the one that made that sword? I wish I did, but I got it off of a rogue shinobi from another village a while back, gave it to me as a last wish, I guess you could say, the Uzumaki answered as he wandered around the chamber and listed off the tools that he knew and ones he guessed from his time working with different variants back at Konoha. With the flames light, Naruto's eyes soon landed upon the nearby workbench and saw something of curious interest. Heading over there, he soon came across several scraps of metal alongside what the blonde guessed to be a blacksmith's journal. He first inspected the handfuls of metal and saw they were made out of several alloys, but with the current light it was hard to tell which ones. Even the feeling was alien to the boy. What did you get there, Naruto? Varying scraps of alloy metals, the blonde stated as he handed a piece as large as his forearm to Martel, which also gained a confused look from the man. Alloy metals are different kinds of material mixed together to make stronger and tougher steels, and these scraps seem to be of The same compound, but I have no idea what it is. While the Viper tried to inspect them, Naruto opened up the Smith's journal before gaining a confused look. It was written in that odd language Oberyn said that not even he could recognize. He tried to make heads or tails out of it, but the pictures at least helped for what was implying in terms of forging. Is this what I think it is? Oberyn thought as he gazed more at the pattern. He's seen it before when he studied at the Citadel years ago. The intricate pattern made the Dornish prince gain a sense of wariness. Needing confirmation, he looked over to Naruto and called out to him, "Hey Naruto." Not looking up from the book, the shinobi answered back, "You, when you have a moment, mind having your copies gather all of the scraps of metal in this room. I need to be sure that what I'm thinking right now is real or not." Looking up with an additional confused look, with some of it coming from the journal, Naruto soon gave the older man a nod. Seeing the man walk out of the chamber to his own thoughts, the blonde decided he should start getting everything in the smelting chamber sealed up. Aside from the requested metal alloys, of course, things were a little quicker than he imagined as he got the equipment sealed away, with all of the alloys placed on the workbench in a medium-sized pile. Before heading out with the pile in his arms, one of Naruto's clones called out to him, "Hey boss, yeah, we missed a few." The clone started as it came up to him and placed the items onto the pile before dispelling as Naruto nodded and began gathering the metals up to put them away. Meanwhile, the second clone whistled at the wall that had a peculiar shape to it that was similar to a door. "Now that is interesting," it stated to itself before it pushed on a section of the wall that groaned before grinding backwards and then slid to the right. "A hidden room, and holy shit, are these real?" the clone asked silently as it walked over to a wall that had been carved away, where layers of sand filled the small gouges, but it was what was lying in the small pits that gained his attention. "I need to tell the boss immediately," and it dispelled in a cloud of smoke. A minute later, Naruto walked into the hidden room, which he could only describe as a vault of sorts, and what he saw inside was astounding. It was a vault of dragon eggs, possibly kept near the heat of the blacksmith shop, to keep them alive for however long they needed to be, or just to be easily reached when the people wanted to hatch them. However, none of the eggs hatched before the doom, and they became fossilized over time. There were dozens of eggs laying in their pits, shattered, and even several on the vault ground. However, it was also disheartening because he couldn't see any eggs that were intact. The number of eggs was easily over 100 in count, but most if not all were broken, and the small dragons inside were now rotten away to the bones. All of them, except 3. Incredible, Naruto said as he filtered through the broken eggs and small skeletons to see if any were intact before he saw a small clutch at the end of the room. To think any would survive this amount of devastation. It's kinda nice to see in such a deadly place life finds a way to persevere, even if it is a form of stone. Kurama's voice said in acknowledgement to the 3 eggs being intact. Nodding his head at the fox's words, Naruto walked over to pick up one of the remaining eggs and examined the rock-hard specimens. These things are still alive after all this time, Naruto thought in shock at the feeling of the small creature's life force. Damn, these dragons are stubborn little bastards. Be careful around Naruto. You don't know if they have been affected by the destruction of this place and all the disease that fills the air or not. I know, Kurama, but what do? I can't just leave them here. Hell, who knows if they'll ever hatch to begin with, if ever at all. Yeah, I can see how that would go poorly for us. The fox agreed. If we manage to hatch them, we could potentially cement a good position of our own in this world, maybe even a lordship at King's Landing with the king acting as our benefactor, the fox stated. Naruto was still amazed that there were real-life dragons in this world. It was not common to see them even in his old world. Deciding to handle these matters later, Naruto sealed the 3 eggs in one of his scrolls. Looking out of the room, Naruto decided that he had stood around long enough in this hidden vault. Time skip. Dragonstone, the ancestral seat of House Targaryen, stood as an impressive fortress with weird motifs such as dragon-shaped gargoyles. It served as home to Aegon the Conqueror, his sister wives Rhaenys and Visenya, and their small army before the conquest. After the conquest, it became a hereditary seat for the heir of House Targaryen, and its title for said heir is Prince of Dragonstone. After Robert's rebellion and the ousting of House Targaryen, it became the land and seat of Stannis Baratheon, Robert's younger brother. It was also the base of operations for House Baratheon of Dragonstone's army, their lord, and the Red Priestess known as Melisandre. There was one rumor about the Dragonstone castle relating to the dragons. After the last dragon's birthing nest, it was said the eggs were hoarded and guarded by Targaryen soldiers in a vault. However, none of the eggs hatched before and during the Mad King's reign, and they became fossilized over time. The eggs were shattered on the vault ground, and the hidden tapestry of House Targaryen inside shredded by Baratheon swords and spears, all except 3 of them. A lone Baratheon soldier ran outside the gates towards the rendezvous point he planned with a sail merchant to leave Dragonstone and Westeros altogether. Both men have heard about the immense value of fossilized dragon eggs being worth more than priceless jewels, except for exceptionally cut jewels. I got 'em. And these things are a beauty, the Baratheon called out to his merchant friend. The merchant didn't look pleased when he heard the number. Only 3. The plan was for 10 at most. We'd be set for life and out of this forsaken country. The soldiers got there before I could, so 3 was all I could manage. But we can raise the price when we sell them. He set the chest filled with the precious eggs in the center of the boat before he set his leg inside. Boy, I can't wait to. The greedy man gasped before he gagged. As blood splattered from his slit throat, the smirking sailor watched his partner fall back on the sandy beach before he pushed his small boat until it floated on the ocean. Sorry, but I never intended to share from the beginning. He opened the chest slightly and smirked ominously as the colors were mesmerizing. I'm going to be a very rich man in Essos. He rowed his small boat back to the hidden anchored ship, boarded it, and set sail east to Essos with his men. Captain, where should we go? One of his men asked as the apparent captain mused loudly before he answered him. Mirren. Sounds good. Raucous laughter thundered the ship as their destination was made clear. While their captain was going to be a rich man, the crew worked their positions with hearty laughs, jokes, and the occasional rumbles over who was best in either warfare or sleeping with a married woman. Oh yes, Euron Greyjoy was indeed going to be a very rich man, and possibly one of the most powerful of the lords in all of Westeros, and maybe even in Essos or Bravos. None of them, including the backstabbing Greyjoy, noticed the cloth-covered eggs moved in the slightest hint, nor the knowledge of whose destiny will change for someone in Essos as their intended ones also made way to a near exact same destination. Back with Oberyn. What is taking Naruto so long? What felt like hours were only a handful of minutes ever since the Dornish prince left the smelting chamber. His mind was working overtime on his personal little discovery, but he wanted to be sure he was right and not jump the wagon on this. Oberyn kept pacing through the main part of the shrine as he waited for Naruto to finally arrive. Sorry, I'm late, Obi-san, the Uzumaki called out, causing the prince to whirl around towards the blonde. Didn't know how much stuff that chamber had, along with the alloys being all scattered about. No, it's quite alright. Going by the nearby steps, Naruto carefully dumped the alloyed metals before putting the later found items to the side. At first glance, Oberyn was a little surprised to see the amount found. In terms of scraps, by his estimates there was potential for some reforging and making several short swords and daggers. Hard to tell at this point since he's not knowledgeable in smithing. Putting that thought aside, Oberyn looked over at Naruto and asked him to unseal the suit of armor and halberd acquired earlier. Not knowing what the Martell was intending, the blonde compiled and unsealed the desired item, picking up one of the metal scraps. Oberyn placed it side by side with the halberd and then with one of the armor pieces for closer inspections. The prince soon swallowed a lump of air before having to sit down with slightly widened eyes on his face. Oh dear gods, I can't believe it. Believe what? I never thought I'd see so much Valyrian steel together in all my life all at once, answered the prince as he eyed the legendary steel scraps, halberd and armor set. That was before he saw the items placed to the side. Possibly what Naruto found by accident while cleaning up the chamber. One was a black-handled knife in its sheath which had small chains wrapped around it as a ruby was embedded in the pommel. The other appeared to be an odd-looking crown with how detailed it appeared to be, including the diamond embedded in the very center of it. Given the unique feature of the nose ridge, the prince thought that instead of it resting on top of one's head it would be slipped around one's face, to be an upper face mask. Valyrian steel, it's a very rare metal that originated here in Old Valyria, sought after by many with how high of quality the metals are. Oberyn started out as he picked up some of the scrap metals. They never rust, they never break, ouch, and the weapons made from it are never dull. The Martell shortly listed as he sucked on his freshly pricked finger. It's considered priceless, or several mines worth of gold, if one would want to purchase one from someone else, though the last time that happened was hundreds of years ago by the Lannisters in getting one of their own. Well, I said earlier that it's not just any metal, it's an alloy. The odd coloration and markings show that a different material was added, and stated the shinobi before looking closer at it again in better light. But now that I can see this better, I'm guessing that several metals were added instead of just one. True, and that at least makes little sense now that I think about it, the prince said, remembering that the Valyrians of old were said to be quite ahead of everyone's time in practically everything, so they might have known more in terms of smithing. So is there a way to reforge all of this to whatever we want? Obi-san, if you want to reforge the metal you'd need to find an expert in working with Valyrian steel. Naruto sighed. Unfortunately there's only a handful of blacksmiths in the world that can only reforge the steel, not make it, and they don't come cheap. If you want to learn from them, or purchase their services. Are you sure? Yes. Why do you ask? Opening up the recently found smithing journal, Naruto came to a certain page and presented it to the prince. Looking closer, the Dornish man saw diagrams in what he assumed was the alloy's creation process, and some pages later showed what he heard about in terms of reforging. With widened eyes, Oberyn realized what this journal contained. By the seven, this was holy shit. If this was real, this could be worth the position of king of the seven kingdoms. Ways in creating and reforging Valyrian steel, the prince muttered in awe. Of course those scraps in that smithing chamber were leftover pieces of Valyrian weapons and jewelry, hence the odd crown over their. Oberyn nodded on that little bit of information before the blonde spoke up. Though there is one piece in here that I somewhat don't understand all that well. Aside from the writing, Naruto pointed to the page earlier as it showed a small diagram of some unknown material added into the metal to create the legendary steel. It appears to be some sort of glass-like core given the sketch here, but other than that I have no clue what it is exactly. Humming in thought, Oberyn got up from his seat and paced around a little to collect his thoughts. After several moments he spoke to his young companion. We should find someone that could translate that journal, probably a Valyrian steel reforger to be exact, to help out on this, but for now we should head on out. We've rested long enough, and as much as I'd like to stick around more, I'd like to leave this place and find a way back to my ship. Nodding at this, Naruto quickly sealed everything away into his scrolls after taking out the remaining kunai and shuriken to make room for the scraps and extra items. He didn't want to waste any more time, as it is with him having a ticket off of this haunted island. Going up the stairs, the two made their way out of the shrine only to find the entrance closed off. What the hell? Asked the Uzumaki, as he looked for a handle to pull onto, yet there wasn't any. Forming up a Rasengan, he quickly rammed it into the door, the ground exploding underfoot from the sheer force of the blonde's attack, only for it to not gain a single scratch after it bounced off its surface. The hell is up with this door? I don't know, Naruto, but I'm not like the feeling of this, the prince muttered as he too didn't like what he just saw in the fight earlier with that one monster. That one blue attack really did a lot in causing damage, but if the door wouldn't open, and is that reinforced, then something must be wrong here. Then we should find another exit if possible. Wait, if this door is closed, where's the natural light coming from? It was a good question for the pair. When they got back to the main shrine chamber, the light seemed to stay the same. There were no candles lit, given they all melted out years ago. So where was the light coming from? Going up in the higher levels of the shrine, higher than the stone thrones. They saw what they were looking for, an exit, or to be more precise, a metal gate. There was enough empty space to bring in the light to the main shrine chamber, but not enough to light up the entire structure. It's locked, and I didn't see any keys while exploring. Now we don't need a key. Pulling out a pair of kunai, he leveled himself to the lock in question. Just need to break it. Coating the ninja weapons with regular chakra, Naruto jabbed the two blades into the lock, and with enough force, and turning, the lock broke, pushing the gate open. Oberyn thought of slight amazement at the moment. Handy. If this was a public place, I'd be using my lock-picking skills, but since we're not. Yes, I get your point. Let's get moving. After stepping out of the gateway, the two adjusted their eyes a little to see that they ended up in a forest, though something was off about this, as they distinctly remembered that there was no forest nearby the shrine when they first entered it. This is not right. I know you said that this place is cursed, right? Well, if it wasn't for that monster we fought earlier, I would have called bullshit, the shinobi stated in a worried tone. Now I think this place just wants to screw with us. I agree, so let's try to find the shoreline and then walk around it to find my ship. With Oberyn's shield and spear out with Naruto's kunai, the two venture into the forest. Unlike before entering the shrine, with neither of them coming across any obstacles, the pair soon came across handfuls of stone men. They hissed once gazing at the two humans and rushed them with weapons on hand. The prince bashed his shield against one of them before smacking the man to the side to eventually pierce its chest with. Naruto, the blonde, rolled out of the way before slashing at the man a few times before leaping in the air and embedded his weapon into his head. Pulling the weapon out, Naruto soon tossed it into a stone man's face, having it lodge into its skull. Oberyn dashed forward as he discarded his shield and used his pole's length to skewer a stone man some feet away. Coming in close, he jumped onto him, pulled the weapon out, and tossed it at the last of the group. What happened to these people? Asked the shinobi as he started to pilfer the corpses for anything of value. This time he got a jagged short sword, a basic shield, and a spear for Oberyn, and some ammo for the crossbow he acquired earlier. I should probably do something with that. Don't want to keep reloading it after each shot. Grayscale happened, answered the prince. Dreaded and sometimes fatal disease if not taken care of quickly. If not treated at some point, people would just drop off, be infected to ruin areas of Esso's hell. Sometimes here of all places where they're said to end up going mad and bloodthirsty. Is there a way to take care of it? None that I know of, though. Word from the wise, don't let them make skin contact or else you'll get it. Wouldn't want a boy such as yourself to die or get infected too soon. I'm already starting to like you slightly. Slightly. We only met each other about an hour or so ago. It'll take more than that, along with some more fighting together, for me to start enjoying your company. Okay. The two progressed through the forest as they kept encountering several foes every so often. Some were standard stone men and some odd surprises of seeing more mutated looking foes. With their fungal looking appearances, they were quite unsettling with the clicking sounds they were giving off. Not wanting to deal with them, Naruto used a shuriken with an exploding tag attached before tossing it. Once the group came together, the clickers exploded in a blast of gore before things settled for the pair to continue onwards. Clang 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 clang. Hey, you hear that? The Uzumaki asked as his ears seemed to pick up on something. Hear what? Just listen. Clang 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 clang. You know, now that I listen closely, I can hear it too. It's faint, but I can hear it. Where'd you think it's coming from? Turning around every other direction, their senses seemed to land towards a building some distance away. Their curiosity got the better of them as they made their way towards it. As the structure's details seemed more focused, the cathedral kept showing signs of great wear and tear over the years, but still stood with its viney walls and trees seemingly growing out of said walls. Rising up the stony steps, they heard the sounds getting louder and louder by each passing moment. Clang 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 clang. Whoever's fighting in there needs help. And do you think the person inside is friendly or another foe for us to take? Then we've got to take our chances. Obi-san, was Naruto's reply as he unfurled his sword scroll and brought out his Kiba blades he got from Raiga's corpse before putting them on his back for a moment, pumping chakra into his arms to push the doors open, with Oberyn letting out a frustrated sigh before helping the teenager out. As the entrance gave way, the two entered, and with the candles lighting up the room, they saw a gruesome sight before them. A legion's worth of bodies lied throughout the large room, with several stacked on top of each other, varying piles on the stony floor. Water and blood was spread out to show bad things were on top of the smell. The pair ignored all of that as their focus soon landed on the individuals fighting against each other. Clang slash clang clang slash 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 clang slash. They appeared to be wearing the same set of clothing and armor like everyone of the dead men. The legionnaires carried great swords in their right hands while having jagged daggers in their left, appearing to be the only arsenal they have. Wearing a black dyed leather vest as it was over chainmail. The same kind of leather was tied around the arms, with only the left was fitted with a gauntlet. The iron kneecaps had slight decorations depicting a lion's head, from what Naruto and Oberyn could barely make out, as it seemed to be of the same design on the armored shoulder pieces. To finish off their appearances, they wore red ragged cloaks with oddly pointed steel helms that seemed unnatural, as parts of them seemed to be falling off and seemed to originate from something else. Clang slash clang. One legionnaire gasped out as his comrade's sword plunged through his gut. The sword is mine, the remaining man growled out as he pulled the great sword out, letting the body fall onto the floor. The man punted out a breath before his eyes caught sight of the new arrivals. Narrowing his gaze, he turned towards them and pointed his bloody great sword towards them. You shall not take what is rightfully mine. The main legionnaire ran towards the two at a quickened pace, causing Naruto to quickly ready his swords and Oberyn to get his shield and spear out. As the legionnaire got in close, he leaped into the air, which caused the prince to roll out of the way before their opponent slammed his sword against Naruto's. The impact was strong as parts of the thunder swords crackled with lightning as the blonde struggled to hold the man back, not wanting Naruto to get harmed. The red viper thrusted his spear into his opponent's side, causing blood to spill out before the man swung around to slash his sword at the spear. The prince held up his shield as he dealt with more attacks on his person. Naruto came up from behind and started to slash at the legionnaire several times, causing him to groan out in pain as blood started to seep out of him. With their opponent distracted, Oberyn rolled in close to bash the man's side with his shield. Grabbing the end of his spear, he swung his weapon around in a whirlwind-like motion to get quick slashes against the man. Things seemed to be working on the assault by the traveling pair as Naruto fought against the man dual sword to distract him well enough for Oberyn to strike him from behind. Grunt, damn it, this guy sure packs a strong swing, muttered the Uzumaki. As he blocked several attacks, he was glad he had picked the Kiba, because the others would have been a hindrance in this fight, and he didn't really know how to use them like he did with Kubikura Bocho I or the Kiba, as he had them longer than the others. Be glad that there's only one of him, the Red Viper grunted out, since the opponent was taking quite the beating. He kept thrusting and spinning his spear around, but wondered how this man was still standing with the many lethal attacks he laid upon him. Neither of you shall have it. What exactly, Grunt? If you tell us, Grunt, then we just stay away from it, Grunt, and let you have it for all we care, yelled the shinobi as the unknown man swung at the blonde, crossing the twin swords in front of him. Naruto grunted in surprise as he was hit with enough force to go flying back and fall onto the bloody ground. Damn it! Seeing Naruto undefended, Oberyn tried to rush towards the boy to defend him slightly, but the legionnaire blocked his path. The Viper bashed his shield against him, but it seemed to parry against the jagged dagger. It pushed the shield out of the way, causing Oberyn to stumble before he was assaulted by several sword strikes. Gah, yelled out the Dornish man as he was sent flying towards a pile of dead corpses. Don't worry, I'm coming, Naruto cried out as he tried to get back up. When he did, he saw a sight that would probably haunt his dreams for a while, as one of the legionnaire corpses rose from the bloody stone floor nearby. It looked at the blonde before making its way towards him. Are you fucking kidding me? Naruto rolled back as the second legionnaire performed a slashing attack in the attempts to skewer him. With the attack failing, the second opponent swung his great sword around in the attempts of lopping the blonde's head right off of his shoulders. The shinobi was forced to use the single Kiba blade he had. The other had been dropped mid-flight courtesy of the unknown legionnaire on hand as shield to keep the bloody blade off of him. The assault was brutal, making Naruto wince out in pain several times. He wanted to summon clones or use his Rasengan, but the legionnaire was being a bit too fast and strong for Naruto to quickly do such things. Back with Oberyn, he wasn't doing much better as he kept dodging the first legionnaire's attacks. They were quite dangerous, and he wasn't fully equipped to deal with this sort of thing, since leather armor can only do so much. He was feeling quite exhausted from this whole ordeal. Even looking towards the side, the prince saw that Naruto was seemingly dealing with his own legionnaire at this time. He could only hope they would be able to have help in any way, shape, or form. Unbeknownst to either of the living humans, a corpse rose from the ground with a groan as it eyed the two legionaries fighting against the new arrivals. Underneath his deformed helm, green eyes shone with fury, as a part of his soul seemed to return, all because of seeing the blonde teenager. He looks so much like him, the third legionnaire thought, as more of his being seemed to return. Using his sword as a crutch, he hoisted himself up and staggered and making his way towards the blonde. I must protect him. Naruto was struggling on his feet by this point as he tried to get Kurama to lend chakra to him, but the fox wouldn't respond back at all. He was tired, damn it, leaving Naruto on his own in this matter. All that he could feel at this point was his body burning from pushing himself further and further, just like the previous times when he tried to use the beast's power. Are my chakra coils expanding right now? Is that the reason why I'm feeling this burn right inside of me? And why hasn't Kurama given me any chakra? If I die, he dies, so why isn't he helping? Were the teenager's thoughts as he ran by the nearby wall and leapt off of it to smack the second legionnaire's head to the side. I just need some space, and I could maybe Rasengan his ass next week, then I can help out Obi-san. He was so distracted with his thoughts that he didn't see the third legionnaire running towards him. When he did, Naruto freaked out and thought he was going to get killed in such a way, though much to his surprise the third legionnaire pushed him away as said legionnaire blocked the incoming sword swing with his own weapon. When gazing upon the third opponent's great sword, it was greatly different from the other two. He saw sure it was a great sword in terms of length, but the design was completely different. The other legionnaire's great swords had a black handle, pommel and guard with some black covering over the bloody blade, but the one wielded by the one that saved Naruto was in stark contrast. It seemed to have a leathery brown handle with a golden guard and a matching lion's head pommel. Shoving the second opponent away, the third turned back and seemingly gave the teenager a warm gaze before going back to attack the second. Naruto on his part saw this and was confused about what just happened. Getting back up, he tried looking for his remaining half of the Kiba blades when he saw it lying several feet away on the ground near the unknown legionnaire that was helping him and Obi-san. Not wanting to question this right now, Naruto grabbed his second sword and dashed towards Oberyn. The prince was about to be stabbed when Naruto leaped at the first opponent and slashed at his side, sending him flying to the far wall. Checking on Martel, he saw the man really drained from the beating he had to deal with. Reaching into his pack, he pulled out some blood and rations pills, taking one of each for himself before handing the rest to Oberyn. "Here, eat these, what are they? They'll help gain back your strength, just trust me on this please," he urged. He was also kinda glad he knew how to make them. "Thank you, Granny." Tsunade hesitantly taking them from the blonde's palm, he popped the pills into his mouth and crunched on them. They tasted really odd even for him, as he tasted blood and some substance rushing down his throat. As Naruto helped him get back onto his feet, Oberyn slowly felt really invigorated, something that surprised him greatly and never experienced before. "What the hell?" he muttered in shock as he tightened his hand. "How did this?" started to say, but was interrupted by the blonde ninja. "You can thank my ration and blood pills on that. Obi-san helps a little on wounds and revitalizes your stamina. Why didn't you give them to me?" Before the prince spoke out, seemingly ignoring the fight going on in the background, as the third legionnaire was now fighting against the first after killing off the second. "I only had a limited supply for starters," stated the shinobi before he turned around to see the current fight going on. "Come on, we need to finish that first guy off." "And what of the second?" "Actually that's the third, and for some reason he saved me." Ignoring Oberyn's questioning look, Naruto dashed at the pair of legionnaires with a Rasengan charged up in the palm of his free hand, slamming it down on the first opponent. Said man yelled out in pain as he was flung to the nearby wall and was embedded into it, grunting and roaring with rage. The first opponent pulled himself out and hotly glared at the boy and the third opponent. "Take your filthy hands off of my sword. It's no longer yours, dear ancestor. It belongs to me, to my brother, and to his children and his legacy," the third legionnaire stated in a slightly even tone as he readied his stance at his ancestor. "You were foolish in taking Bright Roar all those years ago, and all I wanted to do was bring it back home." "Did that legionnaire say Bright Roar as in the Lannister ancestral Valyrian sword?" "Bright Roar," thought out the prince as he stood beside Naruto. With a shake of his head he tried to focus. "Questions can be answered later. For now we need to defeat this man." Without warning, the ancestral Lannister ran forward with a roar as he came in with a sweeping thrust. Rage clouded his vision, trying to take back what's his to begin with. With each sweep of his blade, rock and dirt was flung into the air as he tried to cut up the group of three. Naruto blocked each of the strikes but was being pushed back in the attacks, while Oberyn and the allied legionary laid on the assault. Before long the ancient Lannister collapsed onto the ground, trying to get back up to continue his pursuit of defeating them, but it wasn't enough as he went back down with a low thud, leaving the group of three to rest for the moment. Oberyn was going to start asking the descended Lannister when said man started to groan out in pain before yelling out an agonizing wail. The deceased collapsed, clutching his sides as blood and what appeared to be embers were being lifted off of his body and slowly flew into the air. The two companions gained a sense of wariness as they saw all of the corpses in the room slowly turn into blood and ash before the material went towards the ancestral Lannister. What was even more surprising was when all of the other copies of the same great sword and dagger burned into glowing embers as they followed the ash/blood cloud trail, reaching the downed enemy. The blood, ash and embers were forming around him as the material of all of the legionaries and weapons revitalized and strengthened him. Slowly getting back up, the ancestral Lannister slammed his sword into the ground, causing it to spark to life. Flames started to dance around the blade along with the crude-looking dagger as it seemed to match the glowing red eyes emanating from the man's gaze. Following this, the man's clothing started to singe with edges glowing like embers in the flames. As he watched this, Oberyn got real nervous seeing this occur. "Dear gods, this reminds me of the tales I've heard that took place at the Siege of the Pike. Is this what those soldiers back then saw when seeing Thura's flaming sword? I am taking back what is mine, for I am Tommen II, King of the Rock." The now identified Tommen II bellowed out as he went into a fierce fighting stance, "And I shall take back Bright Roar from your unworthy hands," and like in his house's motto. Naruto and Oberyn heard the ancient king roar before he lunged towards them with a fiery trial. Reacting quickly, Naruto summoned a dozen shadow clones to help out in this fight. One of them was quickly killed off by the crude dagger before a couple were sliced in half by the fire-coated sword. Rolling out of the way, Oberyn recovered quickly and grabbed one of his spears before throwing it at Tommen II. The weapon landed its mark as it buried deep into the possessed man's leg, making him bellow out in pain before cutting the spear from behind. Swiftly turning his gaze, Tommen's eyes looked at Martell and leaped into the air to strike the man down. Oberyn wasn't going to react quick enough to move out of the way, so he held up his shield in response, expecting a heavy blow. All he heard was a resounding clang before looking at his young companion, and with an angry look on his face, Naruto yelled at The ancestral Lannister as the three swords were struggling against each other. Not on my watch, asshole. With a mighty heave due to Naruto pumping his limbs with chakra, the blonde shoved Tommen away and began spinning in random directions back and forth, and he even slammed down on his knees to slash a couple times as he delivered several gashes onto the cursed man. Getting out of his stiffened position, Oberyn grabbed his other lance and followed his companion's actions by thrusting and swiping at their opponent. They soon jumped out of the way as Tommen swung his fire sword around in a small fire-like tornado in hopes of hitting either of the companions. The remainder of Naruto's clones threw out their kunai with attached exploding tags as this delivered a good amount of damage onto Tommen. Bellowing out in rage, he dug his sword into the ground and swiped upwards to send out a fiery trail that destroyed a few clones in the process. What was left of the clones leaped at the ancient Lannister king with either kunai or Rasengan on hand, but neither of them landed the hits as they were soon killed off and went up into smoke. Both traveling companions dashed around Tommen before Oberyn slid on the ground and Naruto went into the air before both of them struck the fire sword wielder. The two had to soon move out of the way as Tommen too went into a blind fury as he started to wildly swing all over the place. At this point neither companions wanted to get close, but it was the only way to finish things off and exit the building alive. Kurama, please at least help me on this like you did when I fought Sasuke. Naruto thought as he and the prince were running all over the room to hopefully find an opening to strike. After this you can go back to sleep for all I care. For a while grown, fine, just don't disturb my slumber and don't get killed, then I'll call things even, was the fox's response before Naruto felt his reserves flood with some of the fox's chakra. Oberyn didn't notice the small changes due to the fight taking place, but if he did, the prince would have seen Naruto's eyes become red as blood and his whisker birthmarks being more pronounced. Alright, time to end this, and with him invigorated, Naruto ran up the wall before pumping a lot of chakra into his legs, leaping off of the structure's wall, leaving a massive dent in the process. Naruto went in close with his twin blades coated in red lightning that was influenced by the might of the fox's chakra coming in close from both sides. Oberyn thrusted his spear into Tommen's chest as it pierced his heart, while Naruto swung his mighty Kiri swords at the fallen king's head and freed it from its decrepit body. Landing in a recovery roll, Naruto looked back to see the body slowly falling down onto the dry ground before its body went up in flames and turned to ash. This left the two companions in a slightly panting mess as they tried to catch their breaths and calm down their hearts with the adrenaline pumping through their veins. It'll take several minutes for that to happen, but this was worth it as they had quite the fight on their hands and both survived this encounter. Gods above, I need a good fucking, muttered the Dornish prince, causing his young companion to look at him with a strange shocked look. Panting, after that I really want to get back to my boat and fuck my beloved Ilaria. Long and hard panting, nothing is better than having a good fuck after a great fight like that. Looking at the young blonde, Oberyn gave Naruto a cheeky smile. Maybe I should get you a girl to have some fun with. What the fuck are you talking about? Naruto bellowed out, resulting in him having an oddly comedic appearance on his face with the literal white eyes as he pointed at the prince in an accusing manner. There's no way I'm getting roped into doing that, you pervert. This caused the Dornish man to burst out laughing as he never got this kind of reaction before. It was practically priceless as he heard the blonde teenager rant out in a comedic fashion, though this stopped as both companions heard a series of coughs on the far side of the room, making them look in that general direction to see the descended Lannister was barely alive, rushing towards his side. Naruto turned the man over before his distorted helm came off to reveal his long gray hair and weak green eyes pulling down the clothing from his face. Naruto saw the withered-looking man's long beard to help show that he hasn't been able to clean up his appearance in Kami knows how many years. Aside from that, the Lannister had a very withered appearance as he spoke to the blonde shinobi. Is it over? Yeah, old man, that guy's dead now, was the Uzumaki's response, getting a small smile from the old Lannister. That's good, wheezing. That's very good. Off to the side, the Martell looked upon the scene of seeing Naruto trying to take care of the obviously dying man on the ground. Whatever curse he was under, it was finally broken, but not without consequence given his withered look shown on his face. Please, child, hand me my family sword. Hand me bright roar. Complying with his wishes, Naruto walked over to where the Lannister Valyrian blade was at and brought it over, carefully putting the great sword onto the man's chest. The Lannister weakly grasped it as he felt a bit more at peace. What is your name, child? It's Naruto Uzumaki. Nodding at this, the old Lannister realized the boy wasn't his nephew Jaime. They looked so much alike around the current boy's age. Aside From the whisker marks and blue eyes, turning his head over slightly to the teenager's older companion, he spoke out, "And yours, it's Oberyn Martell. Oberyn, gods, you've grown so much, and you're Tyrion Lannister, the youngest brother of Tywin Lannister, aren't you?" Oberyn asked, getting the now identified Tyrion to weakly nod. They've only met a few times when the prince was younger, and remembered the man leaving for Valyria in search of Brightroar. To think that he'd end up seeing the man after so many years in his current state. "Yes, and please fulfill me one last request. Please take me back home. That's all I ask," pleaded the weak Lannister, getting Naruto to nod with a delayed one from the Martell. "Thank you." Shutting his eyes one last time, Tyrion Lannister of House Lannister finally passed on without saying a word. Naruto pulled out a storage scroll and made quick work into creating a seal. This was the only way to safely transport the body, since a stretcher would take too long and he doesn't know how long it'll take to bring his body back to his family. Summoning a few clones, they helped move the body onto the dried-up seal, and with a poof, his body and sword were gone inside of the scroll. "So what now, Obi-san? Now we leave?" Martell simply said as he made his way towards the exit on the other side of the building. "I've had enough of this place, and I just want to get back to my beloved Illyria." Nodding in response, Naruto soon followed after his older companion, though he did stop as he saw the great sword and dagger that Tom and Tu used in the fight. He didn't notice this before, but whatever happened after the man's death caused the fire to clean up both of the bladed weapons. No more blood stained the blades, causing them to have a bit of a shinier appearance. The dagger still looked crude, but it seemed to be its initial design, with the curved piece of metal on the wooden handle to complement the claw-looking blade. With the greatsword blade, it had a gradient coloring of black at the very tip before transitioning to a standard steel gray in the middle before light gray towards the handle. The darkened horn guard complements the spiked pommel, and the leather handle as it connected with the blade's guard stretched out towards a quarter down the blade as it connected to the fuller and interesting design on the blade's guard was the bloomed flower with vines wrapped around it to finish things off. The shinobi hesitantly picked them up and expected something foul to happen, only for nothing to occur at all. They felt right in his hands for some reason as a warm feeling came into his palms. Deciding to take the weapons with him, he quickly sealed those up in an empty spot in his weapons scroll before picking back up his kiba blades and strapped them to his back. As the two got to the keep's exit, they pushed the door open. That was surprisingly easy this time around. Once open, the two were greeted with semi-bright lights as they viewed the ocean, with the two stepping onto the cliffside. Neither wanted to know why they ended up here, but it didn't matter as Oberyn let out a pleasant sight. "Well, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?" Martell spoke as he gazed at his ship near the coast. "Now we just need to get the hell off of this island and we're home free." "Are you sure about that, Obi-san?" "Why do you ask, Naruto?" "Because there's a ship coming closer to yours." Looking back at his ship, the Red Viper looked a bit further off the coast and saw another ship was coming in. A sinking feeling came around, and I feared what was going to happen. In response, he started to run away from his position to try and find a coastline. Seeing this, the shinobi ran with him and asked the older man, "What the hell are you doing?" "I need to get back quickly. Pirates are about to hit our only transport, and my beloved is there." "Then what are we waiting for?" Naruto summoned a horde of clones as some of them grabbed the Dornish prince. He was about to yell out at them to let go before he felt a bit weightless as the whole group seemed to jump off of the cliffside and towards the water below. Oberyn felt his heart trying to break out of his chest at this point, causing him to yell out at this point, "Are you fucking crazy?" This of course caused the blonde Uzumaki to roar with laughter. "Sigh, where are you, my love?" questioned a Dornish woman as she laid on the bed in her shared cabin with her husband. "This woman is Illyria Sand, paramour to Oberyn Martell and wife to him in all but name. She is a beautiful woman in her mid-30s with her ravenous black hair reaching her lower back. Her olive skin tone helped boost her attractive and eye-catching appearance with her light brown eyes and thin lips. She was currently wearing an orange-yellow dress with some pieces of snake-like jewelry on her ears and around both her neck and wrists. Described by her husband, she is quite adventurous and shares the same tastes as him in terms of finding others to enjoy varying pleasures with, especially for playing both sides of the board. In terms of their sexuality, she does have her limits at times, but she tends to comply if her beloved is with her for every moment. Though at the current moment she wished that Oberyn didn't go off doing his own thing in Old Valyria. It's been roughly a few hours by her guess as she took a nap to kill that time frame, hoping the Dornish prince will return back from his little search. Once she wakes up, they were on their way to Meereen for their little getaway from Dorne before heading back. Both of them rarely go out on these trips since they want to be sure they can take care of their children, even though they're all teenagers now. On this little journey to Meereen, which has been about a couple of weeks so far, they've stopped by Lys the Orange Shore and Voltanis to restock their supplies. Along the way they would probably spend a few extra days getting towards their destination. but Oberyn insisted they take a small shortcut through Old Valyria to save some days of travel instead of around it. Of course, on the very day the ship came across the place, they experienced a sudden storm where sheer love and the crew saw a ball of light fall from the skies above. Afterwards, the Dornish prince's curiosity got the better of him, and went out on his own to hopefully find the fallen star. It was not great seeing her love leave her by herself, and Illyria hoped that he'll show back. Very soon there were these past moments during her nap that she felt truly worried of her precious Viper, but didn't know what was going on. With a small amount of exhaustion, she made her way out of her cabin to get some fresh air, with her continually talking to herself about her worries. I don't know how much my heart can take without you being near me. I just need a distraction from all of this, but I don't know what can help take my mind off of this little problem. Bang, crash. What the hell? Rushing out of the cabin now, the Sand Snake looked outside to see what happened as the ship harshly rocked. Turning towards the source, she realized what happened. Pirates. By this point the Martell crew was on high alert as they quickly armed themselves with their bladed weapons. The boarding party soon followed as several pirates swung in from their ropes, letting go and falling down while stabbing several crew members in the process. The fighting soon commenced as people left and right started to fight for their lives. Illyria wasn't defenseless, however, as she pulled out a knife on her person and stabbed an incoming pirate before relieving himself of his sword, quickly parrying an incoming swing. The Sand Snake used her knife to slice the man's throat before kicking his corpse away. Rushing into the small battle, she helped some of the crew members fend off some of the attackers, but they appeared to just keep coming to no end. Be as it may, she'll do what it takes to help save the ship. By the time her beloved returns by the 7, we need a lot of help right now, she muttered before being kicked from behind and falling onto the deck. Turning around, Illyria saw one of the pirates about to stab her into the chest. Shirk, hey, are you alright ma'am? Until a blonde teenager stabbed the man's back once, landing on top of him. Dumbfounded by this odd arrival, Oberyn's paramour only nodded in response. The teen was around 6 feet 2 inches, with blonde spiky hair that is long enough to reach his mid-back, pulled into a tight ponytail, and has 2 long bangs that cup both his cheeks. He has a tattered and torn cloak that is orange with black flame embroideries stitched in the lower portions of the sleeves and the bottom of the coat, with a black collar. This was worn over a black jacket that was closed with 2 buttons in the middle to show he wore no shirt underneath, and it had an orange swirl on the left breast area. He had a white cloth wrapped around his waist, and attached to a black belt he wore white wrappings around his legs and a pair of open-toed sandals on his feet. In his hand was a strange sword that had 2 obvious protrusions that were crafted into the design, but when he spun she realized he actually held 2 blades and was quite skilled. If the number of enemies he felled was anything to go by, only she paused when she noticed something else. What the fuck? The snake woman muttered as she eyed the odd spectacle. Gods damn it, Naruto, a familiar voice called out, making Illyria spin around to see her lover finally on deck with a spear and shield on hand. Warn me next time you do that. Well, there was no time, Obi-san, one of the boys called out as he fought one of the larger pirates. It was literally the quickest way of getting here, and running on the fucking water was the better solution, with you and your copies carrying me the entire way. The Viper questioned as he stabbed a pirate through the gut before bashing another with his shield. I would have preferred swimming, for fuck's sake. Yeah, whatever, another blonde uncaringly said as he was quick to run in between the pirates and sliced parts of their legs to make them fall down with varying thuds. The battle continued as the other clones landed on deck and helped relieve the Martell crew of the enemies. Even went so far with the original landing on the pirate's ship and made his way through most of them, slicing several at a time with his swords, by either cutting off limbs or cutting their chests up. Badly, the shinobi wanted to try and keep casualties down to a minimum on the enemy side so the Martells could do whatever they saw fit. On what just occurred though, it's hard to do so with the pirates' constant attempts to kill him at every turn, so he was forced to keep doing what he was doing while occasionally throwing shuriken at the enemy crew, with some sticking out of their eyes or piercing some vital areas. Back on the Martell ship, the Sand Snake sliced one of the attackers across the chest before kicking him overboard. The same followed as she swept behind one of the pirates and shoved her sword through the man's back. With the Viper, he threw his spear at one of the attackers, with it piercing his neck and going through another opponent's head. Coming in close, Oberyn smacked one of the other attackers off of his boat with his shield. With his adrenaline rush, he twisted around when someone bumped right into him and almost attacked the person, only to see Oberyn slash Illyria soon after. their small surprise they developed each other into a soul-searing kiss as the action was soon dying down. The Martel crew was cheering for their success despite the loss of some of their men, but let it be known that the families of those fallen members will be compensated for their troubles as their kiss soon ended. Ilaria gave her husband a curious look and asked the obvious question, "What took you so long, my love?" "I'm sorry, my dear, but I had some trouble on the island." Looking at Oberyn, she could see why, as there were varying rips and tears on his attire with several cuts that'll need stitching soon enough or else they'll get infected. Though I had some help at that time. She was quite curious about who he was referring to. That was until her gaze landed upon the several blonde teenagers running around the deck to help some of the crew out. Him chuckles, yes, him. Seeing her bewildered look, the Dornish prince shook his head as he walked beside her to help follow his young companions' actions, and it's got quite the story behind what happened, beloved, that I'll be sure to hear quite well. Of course, hell, I still need to hear his story on how he got to Old Valyria in the first place.